You fucking bastard. So you've been cheating on me with my best friend this entire time? I never thought I would say those words in my life. The idea that Marcus would ever cheat on me never even crossed my mind. We were always so happy together, or at least we used to be in the beginning. Now, I don't even recognize my husband anymore. I first started to suspect Marcus of cheating on me about 6 months ago when he returned from Hawaii. He had been growing even more distant, and I just couldn't figure out what had changed between us. Was it something I said? Was it something I did? No matter how hard I tried, my husband had completely given up on our marriage, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. Maybe he's just going through a midlife crisis, Emily had told me when I mentioned it to her. Emily was my best friend since elementary school, and we had always been as close as sisters. We grew up right next to each other, and we were like two peas in a pod. It was always Olivia and Emily, never one without the other. Since Emily was an only child like me, we bonded immediately and became best friends. We went to the same schools, wore the same clothes, hung out in the same places, and we often had crushes on the same guys. Now that I think about it, maybe I should have seen this coming. Emily and I moved to New York together after we graduated from college, and my dad got us an apartment in Brooklyn. We'd both studied marketing and emerging media in college, so we usually ended up applying for the same jobs. I know it wasn't a smart move, but we both really wanted to work in the same place. And if we couldn't, then maybe we could end up working close to each other. But then, everything changed when we found ourselves at Reynard Technologies, the largest tech company in the States. Emily was the one who suggested we should apply there, even though the chances of getting a job there were like 1 in a billion. Getting a job at Reynard was harder than getting into an Ivy League school, and I wasn't even hoping for anything when we applied. And yet somehow, a few days after we sent in our applications, we were both called in for an interview. I was over the moon when I got the email, and Emily and I celebrated with an impromptu dance party before we went out for drinks. On the day of the interview, we both arrived before anyone else. I was directed first into a large boardroom, where I was shocked to find 6 terrifying people staring back at me from across the table. I recognized the man in the middle immediately as Marcus Reynard, the CEO of the company. My heart dropped at the sight of him, the most handsome man I'd ever seen. Marcus just oozed confidence, with his sharp jaw, and deep black eyes which seemed to stare deep into my soul. His hair was slicked back, framing his handsome face. He was wearing a charcoal suit, and he looked like he was worth several hundreds of millions of dollars, which he was. What the hell was the CEO himself doing interviewing potential employees? "Welcome, Miss Carson," he said smoothly in a crisp English accent. "Please, have a seat." I sat down timidly, trying not to be overwhelmed by how closely they were staring at me. I was particularly aware of Marcus's fixed gaze on me, and when he smiled at me, my heart soared. He explained that even though Reynard Technologies was a gigantic corporation, he still liked to know everyone who worked under him, because the business was more of a family than anything else. He liked to be involved, and he liked to get down and dirty. As he said this, his lips curved up in a soft smirk, and I suddenly imagined those lips all over me. I swallowed discreetly and forced myself to focus on something else. Like his long and manicured fingers. I could imagine them all over my body, on my neck, caressing my cheeks, my face, my breasts. Fuck. This was going to be difficult. I tried to answer all the questions they asked as well as I could, and I explained how eager I was to work and help the company in any way I could. Marcus seemed pleased with my answers, and the other board members all seemed to be satisfied with my answers. When the interview finished and I was on my way out, Marcus suddenly said, "What do you like to do for fun, Miss Carson?" I turned back slowly, confused by the question. Sorry? "After a long and stressful week, what do you like to do in the weekend?" he asked. I had to think of the right answer, because I didn't want to seem like a boring person who had nothing going on in her life. "Fishing," I blurted out suddenly. I always used to go fishing with my dad. But I also play golf sometimes. His smirk widened, and he nodded knowingly. Good to know. I left the room in a daze, utterly stunned by how effortlessly handsome one person could be. When I returned to the lobby and found Emily, she practically leapt on me and started to ask as many questions as she could get out. But she was whisked away before I could answer any of them, and I sat there quietly and tried to control my breathing. There had been something charged between Marcus and me, even though I had no way of proving it. I could feel it in my chest, and I wondered if he felt it too. After Emily's interview, we headed home and spent the next few hours talking about how handsome Marcus was, and about what we would do if we managed to get the job. Neither of us said anything about the fact that one of us wasn't going to get it, and we both just lived in the moment. But then, a few days later, we both got an email from the company. We opened them at the same time, and as I read the email, I was lost for words with each sentence I read. Dear Olivia Carson, thank you for taking the time to apply for the position of Junior Marketing Associate at Reynard Technologies. However, after careful consideration, we regret to inform you that you have not been selected for this position. This decision was not reached lightly, as you were a very strong candidate. Unfortunately, we have chosen to go in a different direction. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you for your interest in Reynard Technologies. Margaret Wheeler, Senior Marketing Manager, Reynard Technologies. The realization hit me like a high-speed train. I wanted to sink to my knees and start crying, but then Emily suddenly leapt into the air in excitement beside me. I turned to find her dancing and screaming at the top of her lungs, saying, "I got it. I got it." I wanted to feel sorry for myself, but I was happy for Emily. If I didn't get it, then she deserved it. I wouldn't want anyone else to get it except her. And when she calmed down and realized what this meant, she hugged me and told me that more opportunities would come. We both knew they were just empty words, but I didn't argue. I thought that would be the end of that, until about 2 weeks later after she'd started going to work and I was still sending in my applications to other tech firms. I was just about to leave the apartment when a knock came on the door, and I opened it to find Marcus Reynard himself standing in the hallway, wearing a black polo shirt and white sweatpants. My breath hitched at the sight of him, and I couldn't understand what was happening. But he offered me a handsome, dazzling smile, and he pulled out some golf clubs behind him. "Get changed," he said. "We're going golfing." 3 months later, I was standing at the altar and saying yes to this perfect man, who had swept me completely off my feet. It was like a fairy tale, and I had never been happier. Emily was my maid of honor, and she was genuinely happy for me. Or so I thought. Now, 4 years later, I'm standing at the entrance of our apartment exactly where Marcus had stood that day, and staring into his cold, empty eyes. Emily was standing across the room, wearing his shirt and trying not to look at me. I couldn't even look at her, the hurt and betrayal so painful that I was starting to choke up as I stared at my husband. I waited for him to say something. Anything. But he just stared blankly at me, as though he couldn't even see me standing there. "How could you?" I whispered, nearly breaking down as I stared at him. "How could you do this to me?" "You weren't supposed to find out," he said simply, his voice cold and void of emotion. "Are you fucking kidding me?" I thundered. "Is that all you can say? I wasn't supposed to find out." "Liv." "Shut the fuck up," I yelled as soon as my name left Emily's lips. "I don't want to hear whatever bullshit excuse you've cooked up." I turned to face Marcus once again, who was still staring blankly at the wall behind me. He looked like he wanted to disappear, like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world but here. He didn't look like he was sorry. He just looked like he was disappointed that he was caught. Without thinking, I yank off my wedding ring and throw it in his face, then I turn around and storm down the hallway, saying the one sentence I never thought I'd say. "I want a divorce. Marcus. I want a divorce." I never thought I would hear Olivia utter those words. As she walked down the hallway without even looking back at me, a strange numbness washed over me. For a while, I couldn't even think straight. I couldn't properly understand what she was saying, until I allowed the words to wrap around me like a warm blanket. And then I felt relief. I'd been waiting for an opportunity to end things with her for a very long time. It had been 6 months since the idea first came to me, and I knew that it would be the best way to end this sham of a marriage. And I was going to do it, until about 4 months ago when I got a phone call that sent me down this road. "Come home right now. I need to speak with you." A call from my mother was rarely good news. Even after all these years of retirement, she still liked to keep an eye on things. At first I thought it was something to do with the company. Maybe she wanted to talk about our latest project, or maybe she had learned something about our shareholders. Or maybe, and even the thought alone was enough to piss me off, it was something to do with him. Nevertheless, I found myself sitting in the living room shortly after she called, and I waited patiently for her to show up. I never imagined that she would want to talk about my personal life, until she came downstairs finally and sat in front of me. "I'm not going to beat around the bush, Marcus," she said. "I just spoke to the David Cowell about my contracts I needed him to draft, and he informed me that you asked him to prepare divorce papers." I gritted my teeth in annoyance as I realized the mistake I'd made. Being the family lawyer, David was loyal to my mother above anything else, and he told her everything. I should have known that he would tell her about this too. "Are you out of your goddamn mind?" she snapped. "You've only been married for a few years, and already you want to throw it all away. What has gotten into you?" "You don't understand, Mom," I said. "I don't love her anymore. Every time I walk into that house and see her, it just pisses me off. I want to get rid of her and move on with my life." In an instant, she crossed the space between us and slapped me across the face. I remained frozen on the spot, the sting on my cheeks reminding me of all those times she would hit me when I said something stupid. I guess some things never changed. "How dare you sit there and say such nonsense to me?" she yelled angrily. "Olivia is like a daughter to me. All that girl has ever done is love you, which I never understood why. And now you want to turn your back on her. You want the whole world to know how incompetent you are." I couldn't bring myself to say anything, so I just kept my head down and stared at my feet. "Think about what would happen if the press gets wind of this," she continued. "You would be ruined. The entire company would crumble. We promoted an image of inclusivity, tolerance and togetherness among our staff members and our customers. Reynard Tech is all about family. So what will happen when the CEO of the company files for a divorce? Suddenly that whole image comes crashing down. How could you not see this?" I never even thought about that. But as she said it now, it made perfect sense. If the press found out about this, there would be a lot of questions about why we were separating. Questions would be raised, theories would be put forward, and there would be nothing to stop the mob from taking us down. Our enemies were circling like vultures, waiting for an opportunity to pick us apart. And this was the perfect opportunity for them. But what about my own happiness? What about my own choice? Didn't it matter in this situation? "You're lucky I found out about this in time," she said, straightening up. "I've already told David to throw away those divorce papers. As long as I'm alive, you will remain married to Olivia and you will not destroy all the hard work that your father and I have put into making Reynard Tech the empire it is today." "I want a baby," I suddenly blurted out, causing her to pause and look straight at me. "What?" "I said I want a baby," I repeated, staring pointedly at her. "I've wanted a baby for quite some time now. Olivia and I have been trying for years now, but it's not working. We finally went to the doctor a few months ago, and he revealed to me privately that the chances of Olivia ever conceiving a baby is 1 in a billion." She took a step back, and I could see that the realization had gotten to her. Surely this would bring her around. She must understand the need for someone to have a child of their own. "Don't you see?" I continued. "I can't stay in this marriage any longer. I want a baby, and I want it now. I want to grow up with my child, so I can experience all the moments in their life that I don't want to miss. Time is running out, and Olivia cannot give me what I want. And I am not open to adoption. I want my own flesh and blood. So you understand, don't you? I have to divorce her." For a moment, I really thought she would understand. I really thought she would see things from my perspective and allow me to go ahead with my decision. But then a shadow came over her eyes, and her lips tightened as she turned away from me. And I knew that she wasn't going to back down. "My decision is final," she said. "You will not divorce Olivia. If you want a baby, then find some other way to get one, but you will not do this to her. To me. Not now, not ever. Mother. Get out," she said, keeping her back to me. "And if you dare continue with this plan of yours, you will force my hand. You already know that your position as CEO is not permanent. If you put another toe out of line, then I will have to call him back to take over." I stiffened at the mention of him, and bile rose to my throat as I imagined what that would mean for me if he ever came back. I didn't even realize my hand was trembling until I walked out of the room and stopped in the hallway, leaning against the wall and trying to catch my breath. Even though I tried not to do it, I looked up at our family portrait, and for a moment I almost couldn't breathe. My eyes shifted from my dad's stoic face, to my mom's satisfied smirk, and then to my blank teenage expression. It would have been the perfect family if it was just the three of us, except for the fourth person in the picture. The one who looked exactly like me. Ethan stared directly at me with a smile that seemed almost insulting to me. I stared at the face which had been a reflection of mine since the day I was born, and the face which had haunted me for several years now. It had been 16 years since I saw him. 16 blissful years since I was forced to endure his presence. Now, the mere thought of him showing up again was like a knife to the chest. And I wasn't going to let that happen. If he could see me now, standing in my wife's former apartment with her best friend, I would be destroyed. "Marcus," Emily called, pulling me out of my reverie. "Are you all right?" I looked up at her slowly, and tried to hide the feeling of dread that was creeping over me. I smiled at her, and made my way towards her on the couch. "I'm fine," I said. "Why wouldn't I be?" "This is bad," she said, biting her lip. I didn't want her to find out this way. She's not important right now," I said, pulling her towards me and setting her down on my lap. "She can jump off a fucking bridge for all I care." "She's my best friend," she said, although a soft smile crept onto her lips. "If Olivia disappeared, then we would be free to do whatever we wanted. Suddenly I wouldn't be the asshole who cheated on his wife. I would be the grieving widower who would give anything to have his wife back." I already had a fake speech planned, and I knew exactly how long Emily and I would have to wait before we made our relationship public. "What are we going to do now?" Emily asked. "Your mother already said that you're not to divorce her under any circumstances." "She did," I shrugged as I slipped off the shirt she was wearing and began to nuzzle her neck. "But she never said anything about Olivia initiating the divorce herself. I haven't broken any rules." "Well, since you put it that way," she gasped as my lips moved down to her nipple. "Exactly," I said, lifting her up as I stood up and wrapped her legs around me. "Now, let's go back to the bedroom and continue what we were doing." "That sounds like a plan," she moaned as I pressed my erection against her exposed vagina. "We never got to finish." "I'm a free man now, remember?" I chuckled as I squeezed her butt and kissed her. "I'll worry about Olivia tomorrow. But tonight, I'm going to fuck your brains out." She giggled as we headed for the bedroom, and I continued to kiss her while the weight which had settled on my chest for the past few months slowly disappeared. Today, I would celebrate my freedom. And tomorrow, I would call David Cowell. And then I would call my brother. As soon as I got back home, I started to pack my things. I forced myself not to cry, focusing instead on the task at hand. The image of Marcus and Emily was burned into my memory, and I knew that I would remember it for the rest of my life. But I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. They could jump off a fucking bridge for all I cared. After spending so long wondering what exactly I had done to deserve this cruelty from my husband, it was satisfying to finally have an answer. He was more interested in fucking my best friend than fixing our marriage. I could picture the two of them right now, and even the thought of it made me want to sink to the floor and cry until my tears dried up. I couldn't bear to think about what happened, or the sad reality of what my life was about to become. I didn't know what I was going to do now, but I sure as hell wasn't going to stay in this house. For so long, it had felt more like a prison than anything else. I had no memories of being happy here, and I wasn't going to miss anything about being here. I had a plan in mind. Once I packed my things, I would get a hotel. Somewhere in the Upper East Side, so I wouldn't be so far away from anything. And tomorrow, I'll call the lawyer and tell him about the divorce. It shouldn't take long, since Marcus wasn't going to oppose. Once we finalized everything, I would leave New York. Everything I loved about this city was with Emily, and I couldn't bear that thought. I had always wanted to move to England for a while. Maybe I would go there for a while before I figured out what to do with my life. Marrying Marcus made me forget all the things I wanted to do with my life. He told me it wouldn't be right for his wife to be seen working, because I would never want for anything. So he asked me to give up on my dreams and stay with him, and I stupidly obliged. How could I have been so stupid? How could I not see that he was cheating on me? The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, and the way he seemed so satisfied with our current situation. In the past, he couldn't keep his hands off me. But all of a sudden, he stopped trying. The mere mention of sex was enough to piss him off. He would snap at me whenever I tried to get intimate, or he would make up some excuse that he was tired or just not interested. There was also the unexplained pack of condoms I always kept finding in the trash. That was the first thing that raised alarm bells in my head. Either he had screwed up, or he simply didn't care and he wanted me to find out. I finally managed to pack most of my clothes, and I hauled my suitcase out of the closet. I refused to look at our bed as I walked out of the room, and I dragged it out into the hallway. I must have been making a lot of noise, because Carlos, the butler, suddenly appeared in the hallway right as I was about to head for the stairs. He was still in his uniform, his grayish hair slicked back and his piercing green eyes narrowing down on me. Even though he was much older than me, we had always been so close ever since I started living here. I was going to miss him the most. "Ma'am?" he asked confusedly, his gaze shifting between me and the suitcase. "Are you going somewhere?" "Yes, Carlos," I replied. "I'm getting the hell out of this house." He blinked at me confusedly, and as I started to pull the suitcase, he rushed forward and took it from me. "I always knew this day would come," he whispered, a sad expression on his face. But it was not my place to speak. "You knew about the affair?" I asked. "I didn't," he replied. "But it's not so hard to realize that you and the master are not happy anymore. I suspected it would eventually come to this, and you would leave each other sooner or later. I guess it was sooner." "I wish things were different, Carlos," I said. "But I cannot stand this sham of a marriage anymore. I've held on for too long. I have to leave. For my own sake." "I shall miss you, ma'am," he said as he dragged the suitcase downstairs with me. "These past few years of having you with us has been wonderful. You were truly the best we could have asked for." I forced back my tears as I said, "Thank you, Carlos. You have been an amazing friend. Will you inform the rest of the staff for me? I don't have the strength to say any goodbyes right now." "You can count on me, ma'am," he said as we finally got downstairs and headed for the elevator. I wish things could have worked out differently. He smiled at me, but his smile disappeared as we rounded the corner and found Marcus standing in front of the elevator. My heart dropped into my stomach as my eyes met his, and he smiled wickedly. "Leaving so soon?" he drawled, swaying slightly. He had clearly been drinking, and I could see it in how unfocused his gaze was. His shirt wasn't properly buttoned, his shoes were in his hands, and he had used his tie as a belt. He looked like he'd just been dragged through a junkyard, and I wondered how he had gotten this hammered. But it wasn't my problem anymore. "I have nothing else to say to you, Marcus," I said. "Get the fuck out of my way." "Why you bitch?" he hiccuped. "You think why you're so much better than me, don't you? You think you're a saint, don't you?" "Marcus, move," I said. "Now." "Fuck you, Liv," he spat. "You think I wanted to do this? You think I wanted any of this?" "I don't care what you want," I spat. "I don't give a fuck what you want, Marcus. You can go fuck yourself for all I care." For a moment, he looked shocked that I was talking back at him. I'd never actually spoken to him this way before, maybe because on some level, I always felt like he was my superior. But now, I'd thrown all caution to the wind. I wasn't holding anything back. Marcus blinked at me like he was just seeing me for the first time. His lips were slightly parted, as though he was about to say something. I was so close to him that I could see the tiny black flecks in his eyes. I could see the slight crookedness of his nose which he always dwelled on, and he always tried to hide in public. But he was a total stranger to me now, and he stared at me like he didn't know me anymore. And then he slapped me. I didn't even see it coming. One minute I was looking into his eyes, and the next I was on the floor. It was sharp and painful, and it stung as I looked up at him, my mouth open in shock. Marcus had never hit me before. And I couldn't believe what had just happened. "How dare you speak to me that way?" he roared, his anger dulling some of the effects of the alcohol. "You think you have the power to even stand next to me? You filthy peasant. I made you what you are today. If it wasn't for me, you would still be in the gutter right now, searching for scraps and trying to make a name for yourself. I pulled you out of the gutter and made you what you are today. And now you think you have the audacity to stand there and lecture me? I was still too dazed by the slap to say anything, and my cheek was burning as he towered over me. I couldn't look up at him, afraid of what I would see. Listen to me very carefully, Olivia, he said. This is just the beginning of your worst nightmare. I'm going to make your life a living hell. You think this is the end of it? I'm going to take everything from you. I'm going to make you beg for mercy, and I'll make sure you're kissing my feet by the time this is over. I'm going to take everything from you. I'm going to ruin your life so much that even the filthy gutter rats like you won't recognize you. Believe you me, you'll wish you'd never been born by the time I'm through with you. He stormed off without another word, leaving me right there on the floor. I couldn't even move, and my ears were ringing from the slap or from his words. The entire lobby was deathly silent, until Carlos moved forward and offered me his hand. I'm so sorry, ma'am, he said. I'm so sorry. I didn't say anything as he helped me to my feet, and I didn't say anything as he rode downstairs with me, and helped me outside. I didn't even say anything as he helped me find a taxi, and he said a quick goodbye before heading back up to the penthouse. I climbed into the back of the taxi as we drove off, and I stared out the window and watched the cars flying past. I couldn't hear them, or anything else. I couldn't focus on one thing in particular, as a hollow and scathing feeling settled in my chest. And that was when I started to cry. Marcus. Carlos, I yelled as soon as I woke up, groaning when the pounding in my head continued. Get me some fucking aspirin. Now. The room was too bright, and I pressed the button to shut the curtains before I rolled over and pulled the sheets over my head. Thank goodness today was a Sunday, and I didn't have to go into the office. My head was pounding, like a herd of elephants were desperately trying to stampede their way out of my skull. Maybe I shouldn't have had so much to drink. But last night was a cause for celebration, and I wasn't going to waste such an opportunity. After 4 years of misery, I was finally free. And I'd celebrated by fucking Emily's brains out 4 times, one for each miserable year of my marriage. I half opened my eyes and saw that the bed was empty, which brought a smile to my face. She was truly gone, and I was free. No more worrying about what she was going to say or do. No more stressing out over the fact that my marriage wasn't as perfect as I wanted it to be. And I could finally start dreaming of having a child once again. A soft knock came on the door, and Carlos walked in with some tablets, a glass of water and some warm towels. The old bastard always knew exactly what I wanted, even if he got on my nerves most of the time. Good morning, Master Marcus, he said softly, handing me the pills and glass. I've prepared breakfast in case you're ready to eat now. And I've also drawn up a hot bath for you, because I know you will prefer that to a shower in your current state. It reminded me of all those years ago in the Reynard summer home, when Ethan and I were fresh out of college and getting ready to take our roles at Reynard Tech. We were always out partying, and Carlos would always prepare for our potential hangovers even before we woke up. But that was a long time ago. I hadn't seen my brother in over 16 years, and I didn't even know where he was. For all I know, he could be in some little village in Bangkok. Or he could be strolling through the AN rainforest at this very moment. He could even be on fucking Mars for all I cared. We might have been born together, but we were no longer attached at the hip. What time is it? I asked Carlos as I took the pills. It's a few minutes past noon, sir, he replied. You have 15 missed calls and a package has arrived from the concierge. You also have an appointment with David Cowell scheduled in the next hour, and your reminders indicated that you have 2 Zoom meetings scheduled for this afternoon as well as a dinner reservation tonight at La Vauci. Cancel all my appointments for today, I said. I'll speak to Cowell after my bath. And ask Madeline to get me a black dress. She has the measurements from last time. I could have sworn I saw the slight scowl in his eyes when I said that, and he looked like he was about to say something but he thought better of it. Right away, sir, he said, heading for the door. Come back here, Carlos, I said, placing a hot towel on my forehead. Don't think I've forgotten what you did last night. He froze as I said this, and his shoulders sagged even more. He looked like he would rather be anywhere but here, and I had half a mind to fire him right on the spot. Tell me, who do you serve, Carlos? I asked. I serve the Reynard family, sir, he replied automatically. Exactly. And as of yesterday, when you saw that bitch Olivia packing her things, did you not realize that she was leaving this house? I did not assume anything, sir, he replied. I was only thinking of helping her as the mistress of this house. We both knew he was lying, but I chose to give him the benefit of the doubt. After all, he did bring me fresh hot towels. That was the only thing that saved him. At least for now. Olivia is no longer a member of this family, I said. As such, you will not answer to her anymore. If she comes to this house, you are to stop her from entering and inform me at once. You are also to block her from contacting me or anyone else in this household. You are not to speak to anyone about the nature of my relationship with her, and you will inform every member of staff about this. Do you understand? For a moment, he looked like he wanted to say something. But then she bowed in front of me and said, As you wish, sir. Good, I said. Now get out of here. As he hurried out of the room, I laid back down on the bed and placed another hot towel on my head. Thankfully, the pounding was starting to go away. I still needed a while before I would be able to stand up properly and go about my day, but for now I chose to focus on the positives. For one thing, Liv was gone for good, and she wasn't coming back. Maybe there might be a few of her possessions that she still hadn't packed up yet, and I fully intended to be right here when she came for them, so I could humiliate her some more and remind her of how pathetic and useless she was. But there were more pressing matters at hand, and the one thing I'd been dreading for a very long time now was staring me right in the face. There was no way of avoiding it any longer, and the sooner I just got it over with, the quicker I could finally put it behind me. I reached into my bedside drawer and pulled out the note he had left me 16 years ago before he left. I still remembered waking up that morning, and coming downstairs to find my mother seated at the table without touching anything on her plate. She didn't even look up as I walked in, and one look was enough to tell me that something was wrong. What's going on? I asked. Where's Ethan? My mother looked up slowly, a distant, vacant look in her eyes. And I knew, even before she said anything. He'd seemed off during the funeral, but I never thought it would actually come to this. We used to joke about fleeing the country and starting a new life somewhere. I never thought we were actually being serious. But when I saw that he was gone that morning, I immediately knew where he was. He left you this, Mother said, sliding a single note towards me. I recognized Ethan's handwriting immediately, the scribbled, horrible mess that it usually was. Marcus. I'm sorry. I won't be coming back. If you need me, call the number on the back of this card. I need to leave and find some peace. But if I have to, I'll come back for you. Ethan. P.S. Tell Mom I'm sorry for doing this to her. And take care of her for me. I vowed never to call him that day. Even after Mom managed to track him down in London, I still didn't bother calling. I'd gotten what I wanted after all. Why would I want him to come back and ruin everything? But now, as I stared at the card, I thought about all the things I hadn't said to him, and all the things I wished I could say. I thought about how he always made me feel small, and how he always stole the spotlight even when he wasn't trying to. I despised him, but perhaps time has dulled some of that hatred. Bracing myself, I flipped the card over and dialed the number. It should be about 5 p.m. by now, so he was definitely free. I half hoped that he wouldn't answer, but the bastard picked up on the third ring. Hello? Fuck you, I thought to myself. Instead, I took a deep breath and tried to sound normal. Hello, Ethan. He paused, and I know he must have been surprised to hear from me after all this time. Having the same voice didn't help either. I felt like I was talking to myself. But I held the phone to my ear and waited, hoping he would simply hang up. Hello, Marcus, he said finally. To what do I owe the pleasure? I just wanted to give you a heads up, I said. In about a week or two, you're going to hear from Mom about coming back to take my position as the CEO of the company. I just didn't want you to be blindsided. He was silent for a while, and I could almost hear the wheels turning in his head. He was probably wondering how I managed to screw things up. Or he was thinking about how pathetic it was of me to ever think I could step into the role he has been perfect for ever since we were born. But then, he surprised me. I'm not coming back. What? I'm sorry, he said. But whatever it is that's going on down there, I'm not getting roped into it anymore. Tell her not to bother calling. And with that, he hung up. And I could finally breathe. I'm sorry, Mrs. Reynard, but it appears that your bank account has been frozen. I'm sorry, what? I stood in the doorway and stared at Mr. Wallace in confusion as he handed me back the check I'd issued him just this morning. I'd managed to get a small apartment in the village, and the owner almost fell over his feet when I arrived here last night, looking for a place to stay. He recognized me immediately as Marcus Reynard's wife, and he couldn't wait to give me the apartment. In hindsight, maybe I should have gone for a hotel. But I didn't want to go anywhere that would attract too much attention. And almost every hotel in Manhattan knew exactly who I was. A small, modest apartment should have been the best option. But somehow, Marcus had frozen my account already. I'm so sorry, Mr. Wallace said, almost as if he was ashamed to even look up at me. Surely there must have been some kind of mistake. I nodded absent-mindedly as a hollow feeling settled in my chest. Marcus. This had his name written all over it. How did he manage to freeze my account so quickly? The bastard must have known I would need to withdraw some money, and he did this despite me. I should have seen this coming. Hold on, I said, heading back inside and grabbing my purse. My other checkbook is still there, the one for the savings account I never use since most of my expenses are taken care of. Or at least they were. Here you go, I said, handing a new check to the building manager. I'm sure there shouldn't be any problem. Of course, he said, though he still didn't meet my gaze. As he hurried off while holding the check up and staring at it, I shut the door and leaned against it, barely able to see in front of me. I'd cried all through last night, but now I couldn't even bring myself to cry anymore. I just felt hollow, like a part of me had been ripped out and it would never be replaced. I didn't want to sit there and mourn a marriage which was never real in the first place. Pull yourself together, Olivia, I whispered. You've got this. He's the one who cheated, not you. So why did it hurt so much? No matter how hard I tried to convince myself that this wasn't my fault, I just couldn't help but feel like I did something wrong. Maybe if I had been a better wife, more attentive or more caring, then it wouldn't have turned out this way. I'd put my entire life on hold for Marcus's sake. I stopped looking for a job when we got engaged, because he told me that it wouldn't look good to his rivals if his wife was working somewhere. He assured me that I would be well taken care of, and that I didn't need to pursue my career anymore. But now, I was back to square one. I had no job, no house, and only a few bucks left to my name. Everything was tied down by Marcus, and he would definitely use that against me. My only consolation was the fact that once the divorce was finalized, I would get a hefty settlement and I would be able to start my life afresh. I hated feeling this way, like a leech who was desperately waiting for hand-me-downs from my ex. I hated the fact that even though I'd packed up and left him now, my future was still in his hands. And there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. My phone suddenly started to ring, and I dragged myself up and headed into the room. The entire apartment was smaller than the living room of the penthouse, with a single room, a tiny kitchen and a bathroom that didn't have any hot water. I learned that the hard way this morning. Nevertheless, I overlooked all this as I grabbed my phone and sat by the windowsill. Hello? Hi, Liv. I froze at the sound of Emily's voice, and I almost threw my phone out into the street. How dare she call me right now? Was she calling to rub salt in my wounds? To laugh at me and remind me of my current situation? Before you hang up, please listen to me, she said quickly. I know you're upset, but I just really need to talk to you. I don't want to hear a fucking word from you, I snapped. You psychotic bitch. You ruined my life. Yes, I did, she said. I know I did, and I'm not even going to dispute it. I wish I could stand here and tell you that I'm sorry for how things turned out, but I would be lying to you and to myself if I did. I'm not sorry for what happened, Liv. I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm actually glad it worked out this way. Fuck you, I spat. Seriously, fuck you. How could you do this to me? I didn't do anything to you, Liv, she said. You brought this on yourself. You can't seriously tell me you don't know the exact moment when your entire marriage fell apart. This did not come out of the blue. Marcus was hurt, and he came to me to console him. You knew I always liked him, Liv. You knew it. And when he came for you instead of me, I didn't argue with him. I understood that it was his wish, and I respected it. But when you threw your marriage away, I simply picked up the pieces. What the fuck are you talking about? I asked. Call me when you figure out where it all went wrong, she said. In the meantime, I just thought I should let you know that Marcus is coming for you. I owe you that much, at least. If not for anything, then simply for the fact that we used to be friends. I know it's a lot to ask, but if you could be happy for me, then perhaps we could find a way to rebuild our friendship. I truly miss my best friend. I will never let you into my life, Emily, I said. You took everything from me. I treated you like a sister, told you things I never told anyone else. I gave you a part of my soul, Emily. And this is how you repay me? Don't you see your problem? She snapped. You always act like you're better than everyone around you. Little Miss Perfect. It's always so suffocating being around you. Our friendship could only work as long as you were shining brighter than me, and I stayed in my lane. You could never live with the idea of me being happier than you. But now it's my turn. You've looked down on me my whole life, Liv. But not anymore. I'm going to make Marcus happier than you ever could, and I'm going to heal all his wounds that you couldn't. I didn't even know what to say to her anymore. The betrayal was so painful that I almost couldn't breathe. I hung up without another word, then curled up on the windowsill and started to cry once again. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. Emily had never been my friend. She'd always hated me, and she was simply hanging around because she couldn't leave. Did I really make her feel that way? Was I always trying to outshine her in everywhere? No. Absolutely not. I wasn't going to sit there and allow her to make me feel guilty for what happened. Why didn't she say anything sooner? Why didn't she have a simple conversation with me? Did she really need to have an affair with my husband? I was the victim, not her. At least she'd given me a heads up. Marcus was coming for me. I needed to be prepared for when he did. And the best way to do this was to get ahead of him. I needed to make the first move, before he did anything drastic. I wasn't going to sit there and allow him have the upper hand. It was like a game of chess, where everyone knew that the winning chances were higher if you were white, because you got to start first. I needed to make the first move, and strike him where it hurts. I wasn't just going to sit here and lick my wounds. Grabbing my phone, I quickly scrolled through my phone until I landed on the person I was looking for. I muttered a silent prayer before I dialed, and he answered on the first ring. Hello? Hi, David, I said. Is this a bad time? Not at all, Mrs. Reynard, he replied. I just finished in the courtroom, and I'm about to head out for coffee. Is this about the appointment Marcus made? I thought we still had another 30 minutes before that. So he hadn't spoken to Marcus yet. Great. No, it's not that, I said. Although it might be related in a way. I'm listening, he said. David, I need a favor, I said. And it's urgent. I need to know that I can trust you. Marcus cannot know that I've spoken to you. He paused for a moment, before he said, attorney-client privilege, remember? Well, I know you're the Reynard family lawyer, I said. Your loyalty is to them first. You're getting a divorce, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I said, the words hitting me for the first time. And I want you to represent me. I heard some rustling in the background, like he was checking something. And then he said, I'm at the coffee shop on 5th Avenue. Meet me in 10 minutes. Thank you so much, David, I said, relief washing over me. I'll be right there. As I hung up, I felt optimistic for the first time since yesterday. I grabbed my purse and quickly left the room, a small smile on my lips. The game had begun. Thank you for seeing me, David, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Even though the cafe was crowded, we'd managed to get a table at the far end of the floor, so we were secluded from everyone else. David leaned back and raked his fingers through his hair. There were more gray hairs on his hair than last time I'd seen him, and he was starting to grow a stubble. David was a buff guy, but not so muscular that he would seem off-putting. He looked like he came from old money, with his expensive suits and flashy Rolex watches. I'm not gonna lie, Liv, he said, sitting up straight. This is going to be messy. Like Rebels versus the Empire messy. I've known Marcus for over 2 decades now, and he's going to come for you with everything he's got. So I've been told, I said. That's why I came to you. You're the best at what you do. And if there's anyone who can make sure I don't get screwed over, it's going to be you. Maybe I was stroking his ego a little bit, but I had to make sure I got him to help me. Fuck. He groaned, looking up at the ceiling. You know, I and my suspicions about the two of you. Something just didn't seem right, especially during Brenda's weekend getaway when I found him sleeping in the living room. But I didn't want to say anything, since it wasn't my place to do that. I remembered the getaway very well, about 6 months ago during Brenda's anniversary. She and David had been married for 10 years, so they invited all their friends for a weekend getaway in Bora Bora. I thought it would be a chance for me and Marcus to reconnect, so I tried to get intimate when he came to the room. I'd only managed to kiss him before he shoved me off and left the room. But none of that mattered now. I just needed to get David on my side. Can you help me? I asked. Please, David. You're my only hope. I wish I could, Liv, he said. I really do. But in good faith, I wouldn't be able to. The Reynard family has me on a retainer. Besides, I'm your friend. It would be a conflict of interest. It felt like someone had taken the entire wind out of my sails. I sank into my seat, a cold and depressing weight settling on my chest as I realized what he'd just said. There went my last shot out of the window. Now there was nothing I could do to save myself from Marcus's wrath. Fuck. I groaned, burying my face in my palms and fighting back the tears. I felt so small and helpless, and I couldn't even bring myself to move. What was I going to do now? How could I possibly hope to go up against Marcus now? Relax, Marcus said. I have good news. 2, actually. I looked up at him, and he flashed me his signature dazzling smile. The press had called it his jury-winning smile. I instantly felt at ease as he said this, and I knew that he had a plan. First of all, he began, I won't be representing Marcus either. Both of you are my friends, and I can't go up against either of you in good faith. I guess bringing you cookies on Christmas has paid off then, I said, smiling despite myself. More or less, he chuckled. The chocolate chip ones especially did the trick. Anyway, I might be able to help you, though not directly. How? There's only one other lawyer I know at J.P. Steele who can take on this case and win, he said. Even going up against me, she might stand a chance to win. Her name is Sierra Walters, and she's a shark in the courtroom. Trust me, you'll want her on your side. David, I should let you know that I'm in deep shit right now, I said. I was hoping if it would be you, then we could reach some sort of agreement where I would pay for your services after the case is settled. I couldn't even afford a consultation with you at this moment. His smile dipped for a brief moment, but he shrugged it off. Never mind. Sierra owes me. She can take your case pro bono. I don't know what to say, I said as tears welled up in my eyes. Thank you so much, David. Hey, what are friends for? He said awkwardly. Also, Brenda would kill me if I didn't help you. He pulled out a card and he was about to start writing when he suddenly looked up and his eyes widened in shock. Fuck. What is it? I asked. Marcus. I froze as he said this, and I instinctively turned around and saw him standing just outside the cafe in a denim jacket with sunglasses over his eyes, staring down at his phone. My heart lurched in my chest, and I wanted the earth to open up and swallow me whole. How could he be here? Did David invite him? Was I being set up? A million other thoughts all swam through my head, and I immediately started to tremble. He was supposed to call me, David said through clenched teeth. I don't know what he's doing here. He looked around nervously, then immediately pointed to the booth behind him, which was thankfully shielded by the potted plant which was tall enough to conceal it entirely. Quick! Get back there and stay low. I scrambled away immediately, and ducked just in time as the cafe doors swung open and Marcus stepped inside. Marcus, David said, trying to sound surprised. What are you doing here? I thought you were going to call me. Fucking headache, Marcus groaned as he took the seat I'd just been in. I needed to get out of the house and get some fresh air. My heart was in my throat, but I kept my mouth shut and tried to listen to their conversation. Well, I was just finishing up, David said. Shall we head up to my office? No need, Marcus scoffed. I'm not going to stay for long. I just needed to let you know that Olivia and I are getting a divorce. He said it so casually, so nonchalantly that you would think he was talking about the weather. I wished I could walk up to him right now and slap him across the face. But all I did was slide even lower in my seat and focus on staying hidden. That's rough, David said. So what do you need? Is that even a fucking question? Marcus scoffed. I need you to prepare some divorce papers and take care of everything. I want this done with as quickly as possible, before the press gets wind of this. That bitch will find a way to make me seem like a monster. Which he was. Language, Marcus, David said. Whatever happened between you two, there's no need to resort to name-calling. Fuck you, Marcus spat. Just take care of this. For a brief moment, I imagined that David would punch him across the face. But he simply leaned back in his seat and said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. You what? Marcus roared. I can't take on this case, he said. I could lose my license if I did. What for? Conflict of interest, David said calmly. Liv is my friend, as much as you are. I'm not your fucking friend, David, Marcus spat. I'm your fucking client. You work for my family. It's too risky, David said. Our personal relationship would muddle the case. Your family has treated me as more than just a lawyer. I couldn't get in the middle of this case. Marcus was silent for a while, but then he sighed in a defeated manner and said, So, now what? You need to get someone else to represent you, he said. Someone who doesn't have any attachment to you and Olivia. What about that Walters chick? Marcus asked. I heard she's good. No can do, David said. She's already representing Olivia. And how exactly do you know this? David went silent, and I stiffened with terror. Marcus had caught him. Now he would know that I'd been talking to him. But David handled it smoothly, with the confidence that must have come from spending so many years in the courtroom. I heard from her this morning that she's taking on a divorce case for a wealthy tech CEO's wife, he said smoothly. Now that you've told me this, it makes sense that she's talking about Olivia. Fuck. Marcus groaned, slamming his fist on the table. How could she possibly afford her? I froze her account last night. She should barely have enough money to feed herself right now. Beats me, David shrugged. You'll have to find someone else. Whatever, Marcus said. Thanks for nothing. I need to find another lawyer then. Sorry, buddy, David said. Thanks for nothing, Marcus said, and I heard the chair scrape as he stood up. Bye. He stormed off, and I didn't move until David told me that he'd gone. Thanks for sticking your neck out for me, David, I said. I don't know how I could ever repay you. You can repay me by getting your butt over to JP Steel right now and talking to Sierra, he said. The sooner we get this over with, the better. As we left the cafe, I paused and took a breath. The relief flooded through my veins, and I was glad that we'd managed to evade Marcus today. Little did I know the evil plan he was already working on at that moment. Sierra Walters looked like she belonged on a runway, that in a courtroom. She was absolutely stunning, her dark skin and luscious, jet-black hair making her look more like a wealthy heiress than a cutthroat lawyer. She was wearing a navy blue suit, and her Louboutin heels dangled off her feet as she sat across from David and me. Her piercing green eyes settled on me, and I felt small and insignificant in front of her as she stared into my soul. So, let me get this straight, she said in a crisp English accent. You want me to take on what could turn out to be the biggest and messiest divorce case in the country, without even getting paid? A settlement can be agreed afterwards, David said. You owe me, Walters. Don't forget that. She glared at him as he said this, and something about the way she looked at him made me feel uneasy. But I knew David wasn't that kind of man. He would never cheat on Brenda. No matter how hot Sierra Walters might be. Well, I'll be damned, Sierra chuckled as she leaned back into her seat. This is going to be a bloody nightmare. The press coverage alone will make me want to jump off the Manhattan Bridge. Celebrity divorces are always juicy stories. They'll be on us like moths on a flame. It comes with the territory, Walters, David said. So will you do it? Her gaze shifted back to me, and she leaned into her seat before she sighed and rubbed her chin. I'll need to speak with her privately. David didn't look too pleased with that statement, but he stood up and walked out of the room after placing his hand on my shoulder encouragingly. Once he was out, I stared back at Sierra and tried to look apologetic. She was doing me a favor after all, taking a case like this blindly without knowing how much she was going to get paid. Her lips tightened as she remained silent, the only sound between us being the slow tapping of her nails on the desk. She looked like she was sizing up her prey, and I tried not to seem so intimidated by her steely eyes. I imagined what it would be like to stand across from her in a courtroom as she tore me to shreds, and I instantly knew I wouldn't want that. So, she said finally, what's your deal, Mrs. Reynard? Excuse me? Your deal, she said. Your angle. What are you trying to get out of this? I don't understand. She leaned forward slowly, her eyes hardening as she said, this isn't going to be a picnic, love. This is war. If you think this is going to be easy, think again. You're about to have your entire life torn apart, bit by bit, and leaving the naked, ugly truth for the entire world to see. All of your carefully crafted secrets, all those little intimate moments that were only between you and your husband, they'll be ripped apart in a courtroom and you'll have nothing left to hide. Are you really up for that? My palms were sweating as she said this, and I shifted nervously in my seat. My heart was beating wildly against my chest, and my throat had already gone dry. Sierra seemed to realize what was going on, and she slid a glass of water towards me. I gulped it down instantly, then poured another glass and downed it as well. You're not ready for this, Olivia, she said. I can tell when someone is going to break down in the courtroom, and everything about you tells me you can't withstand the pressure. You'll be devoured alive. My ears started to ring as I imagined myself in the stand, looking down on Marcus and his lawyer as they tore me apart and made me look like an evil, pathetic and disgusting partner. The man I once loved would probably think of me as nothing but a stain on the bottom of his shoe, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. Sweetheart, Sierra said, let's just reach out and agree to a settlement. I'm sure your husband will be more than happy to settle in order to keep this out of the papers and not drag it out for too long. You want my opinion? Let's try to get some sort of settlement. It would have been the wise thing to do. Take a sizable payout and start over. I could do that. I should do that. But then the image of him and Emily flashed in my mind, and I balled my hands into fists. Are you married? I asked, looking up at her. Never was, she replied. My ex-boyfriend decided that my sister was hotter than me, so he ditched me and ran off to the Philippines with the skank. Well then you don't know what it's like to completely devote yourself to one person and have them destroy everything in the blink of an eye, I said through gritted teeth. I gave Marcus every bit of me. I gave him my heart, my body and soul. I put my entire life on hold for him. And he took all of that and bashed it on the floor. He destroyed everything about us, and everything we'd ever stood for, just so he could get his dick wet. I'm not going to sit back and let him get away with this. I understand that it will be tough, but I'm not going to let him get away with it. I want what I'm owed. Then I'll pack up and leave, and he'll never see me again. I could have sworn I saw a satisfied grin in her eyes as I said this. She had been staring at me like I was a little girl, but now she looked at me with a little bit of respect. When she sat up, there was no more power imbalance between us. We were on a level playing field now. And I already knew that she would take the case. That's what I wanted to see, she said, chuckling. I've been in enough cases like this to see that the men always get what they want. We're always dealt the short end of the stick, and they get to walk away with everything they've ever wanted even after screwing us over. Well, fuck that. I'll be damned before I let another bastard walk away with a smile on his face after screwing a sister over. So you'll take the case? I asked. I already did, sweetheart, she said with a smile. About 2 minutes ago when you were giving your little speech. And you have my word, we're going to rip Marcus Reynard to shreds and get you exactly what you're owed. He wants to fuck your best friend and get away with it? Screw that. By the time I'm done with him, he'll be living on the streets and begging for change. Thank you, I said, beaming at her as relief flooded through my veins. I couldn't believe my luck, and I finally started to believe that things were going to turn out just fine. I'll file a petition and have the divorce papers ready today, she said. Since he doesn't have an attorney yet, it might slow things down for a day or two. But we'll get through this in no time. I'm sure the judge would want things to be concluded quickly and amicably, given the fact that the public's eye will be fixed on this case. This will tip the scales in our favor. Chin up, Olivia. If I were you, I would already be booking a six-figure vacation in the Caribbean. Thank you so much, Sierra, I said. I really appreciate this. You have no idea how much this means to me. You can thank me after I bankrupt your ex-husband and destroy his entire life, she said. When we're done with him, Marcus will wish he'd never been born. For now, just tell me everything I need to know. Start from the moment you first laid eyes on him, until yesterday when you caught him with your best friend. And so I did. I spent the next hour telling her about my life with Marcus. I told her about the early days, when he spoilt me with lavish, expensive gifts that cost more than my parents' mortgage. I told her about the trips we took together, and how sweet and romantic he was. I told her about Rome, and how he proposed to me after a romantic dinner date. I told her about the wedding, the honeymoon, the adjustment to married life, and how I was suddenly thrust into the limelight as Marcus Reynard's wife. And then I told her about the first cracks in the marriage, the constant arguing, the fights, the ugly nights when I would lock myself in the bathroom and cry until my throat felt raw and empty. I told her about how he completely changed, and how we stopped talking completely. I told her about the moment I first started to suspect he was cheating on me, and how I slowly followed the trail until I caught him yesterday. By the time I finished, I was soaked in tears and trembling all over. But I also felt relieved, like a weight had been lifted off my chest finally. I left that office feeling like an entirely different woman than when I'd walked in. Sierra was ready to fight for me, and I was finally feeling optimistic. As David walked me downstairs to get a cab, I started to believe that things would turn out just fine. And when he promised to swing by my apartment later to check on me, I was glad to remember that there were still some people out there who cared about me. Perhaps if I wasn't so happy, I would have noticed the familiar black Porsche parked across the street. And perhaps if I had been paying attention, I would have noticed Marcus staring at me from behind the wheel, a murderous look in his eyes. I'd made my first move, but he was already 10 steps